Shalom. This is Mary Omni from the World Government House of King David, Holy Covenant Constitutional Enforcer. This is a Republic Notice. The title of this Republic Notice is called True News. The True News report is Ted Cruz is not eligible for the presidency. This True News report is Ted Cruz is not eligible for president. It's 2013, the month of October. Right now we're in the middle of what they call a government shutdown. And there was a filibuster that took place in the Senate. Ted Cruz, who is a Canadian that is the senator of Texas, is the incorporate doctrine senator of Texas. See, know the difference. Is the incorporate doctrine senator from Texas, not the constitutional senator from Texas. Okay? And as an incorporate doctrine senator from Texas, that means he's not eligible for the presidency. Okay? There has been a big controversy about whether President Obama was eligible for the presidency, created mostly by the far right, wacko Tea Party conservatives. Now, I don't care for either party. The only thing that I care for is the King Yahshua, Holy Kingdom of David. Okay? And the covenant called the Constitution. Okay? Now, the reason I don't care for either party, because they're full of apostates on both sides. There are apostates in the fact that they think everybody is staying asleep to the fact that they are apostates. Most of them was elected by incorporate doctrine dung contracts. That's what makes them apostate, because incorporate doctrine contracts are those votes of consent to debt and theft. So they was elected by consenters to debt and theft and infringement on the Constitution. So that's what the Senate on both sides of the Democratic Party of the day and the Republican Party of the day consist of. Incorporate doctrine hijackers who pretend that debt and theft is constitutional, who pretend that incorporate doctrine supreme constitutional amendments. Now, with all this pretense, they also pretend that a Ted Cruz can come straight out of Canada and be eligible for presidency, but President Obama can't be eligible because they say he come out of Kenya. Here we go. And see, this is how you know this is based on a white stale supremacy, strong delusion. See, there's strong delusion in being supreme because white is not supreme under the sun. But they want to insist that they have more intelligence than blacks that are in the Constitution and actually have amendments and would be the true constitutional senators like David wrote in the book America in Black and White, where he showed the true senators, which were black men who were the major founders of the Republican Party in 1867 out of Texas. All this is buried, but in David Barton books of America in Black and White, he exposes the early senators. And them senators were non-consenters. So the fact that they were in the Senate and as non-consenters, that means the Senate is in truth non-consenters. Non-consenters is the namesake set aside. They are different from everyone. They're the special name of God Almighty, God's sovereignty. Because if you're a non-consenter, then you non-consent to the world and all its systematic abominations. Okay? So the true Congress is a non-consenting Congress if it's constitutional. But the consenting Congress of corporate doctrines consent to debt and theft, and then they consent to any foreign or corporate can control the resources of the Constitution. The Constitution, the supreme law of the land, and by the Constitution being the supreme law of land, is the supreme law of wealth resources. That in corporate doctrines want to use consent to debt and theft voters who charge in like cows and goyim and animals and base everything on who can be the majority herder, who can be the majority animal, who can be the majority in that voting booth. I'm the majority. I'm the praise. The majority wins. Majority. Democratic majorities don't work nowhere in the world. Don't work nowhere in the world. The system always falls because it's based on animalistic herding. It doesn't work in the United States, and that's why the corporate doctrine system is falling. President Lincoln ensured that the republic will stand forever. It's God's sovereign. They gave it in God's hands in 1788. In New York, they gave it to God's hand in 1788 and put it in the hands of God Almighty. Okay? So in this country is in the hands of God Almighty. And God Almighty has his namesake in the Constitution called Judah, which AKA people know as Black Americans. Not African Americans. We're Black Americans. And we're not no more African than a Chinese is Japanese or Japanese is Taiwanese. We're not no more African than, a Puerto Rican is Mexican. Okay? So we're not African Americans. Okay? If a Japanese is a Chinese, and if a Taiwanese is a Cambodian, and you don't know the difference between them, see, this is the silliness of calling us African Americans. We are not African Americans. We're Judaic. We're from Judah, Judea. Okay? We've been all over the world, and we've been in Africa. We've been all over the world because God sent his people to four corners of the world. So we're no more African than we are European or Asian or that. We're everything with a namesake. And the namesake highest name is Judah or Yahudah from Judea, the Nazarenes that are King Jesus people. Okay? So this is coming to the point where I want to tell you that the Tea Party and their doublespeak, ass backwardness, want Ted Cruz from Canada to be eligible for the presidency. While their whole campaign for almost 5 and 6 years now is no foreigner could be presidency. Now, they call President Obama a foreigner, and they think they know the history of President Obama. But this is a history that they overlook that's in plain sight. That he's married to a constitutional citizen and they have children. And when they had children and they married each other and he made a commitment to the First Lady Michelle Obama and their offspring has their blood mergence, then his blood is merged with the blood of those who've been here for 500 years. Because everybody know Michelle Obama is a descendant of the captives. Books have been written about this. They traced her bloodline and everything, and they know she a descendant of the captives. And that was constitutionalized as a citizen by the Union, for the God's sovereignty. And this is a genius union. This is a genius union. I mean, these men were the geniuses in white skin. Now, I'm not overlooking that they consulted with blacks See, because the blacks were the geniuses in black skin who sat at the table with them. And we have the red natives who sat at the table with them. And this is where the Jews and the Gentiles came together in the 1800s after the Civil War. And they secured this Constitution. They Fort Knoxed it like gold and platinum for the kingdom of David. I mean, believe what you want to believe. This Constitution is Fort Knox and platinum in gold and platinum, because what they did was made sure the non-consenters was put in there, because when you non-consent, you're God sovereign. So they made the non-consenters the supremacy clause, because 3/5 couldn't consent to nothing. And they made them the national and constitutional citizens and the supremacy clause. So if they're the national supremacy clause and non-consenters, I tell you as a non-consenter, Ted Cruz, you will never be president. You're ineligible. You're preemptively nullified. Go back to Canada, because you're not even really a senator. You are a thief, an infringer, and you was elected by those who consent that they are thieves and infringers. And they are deranged, just like your Tea Party. They are deranged, and the tea they gonna be drinking is the piss tea of Satan. That's the only tea party y'all having, is the tea party of your satanic elixir called piss. Patriarchal indoctrination subjugation syndrome, where you feel as though you can subjugate the Constitution because you're so sick and strong delusion, you think you can overcome a union when that union made that Constitution soaked in cosmic blood placenta and unionized all the land, and the natives came together and put blacks in all their native nations to make sure that land was non-consented, so it coincided with the constitutionalization of the non-consenters. They called them African and black, but they knew who they were. They knew that they was Judah, even though they came and they was picked up from maybe West Africa. But they made sure they called them black in the Supreme Court case of Dred Scott. And it says 3/5 black, slave or free, is the 3/5. And that 3/5 investment turned into the 14th and 15th and constitutional amendments. Yeah, we got to return on our investment. We got to return on our investment. And America is the return on our investment. Okay? Now, yes, we were humanly injured and we're waking up. We were humanly injured and we're waking up. And as we're waking up, we just want to tell you of those of incorporate doctrine like Ted Cruz and the apostate Senate that's elected by incorporate doctrine. You're hijacking us. And a case of habeas corpus will be filed against each and individual of those who lead their states and their governors. And you're not eligible for presidency, Ted Cruz. President Obama is. And we non-consent Article 2 to you as the Tea Party and the Ted Cruz followers to judge. And we don't owe you health care because no one forced you here, Ted Cruz. No one forced you to America. No one forced any of your constituents after 1871 U.S. Corporation, which is the mule owned by the constitutional citizen. We didn't force you here. It's U.S. Corporation 15 ABC. U.S. Corporation 15, that means the 15th Amendment is the New Jerusalem Wall. It can't get passed. A, American. B, black. Constitutionality. 15 ABC. That's our mule. The U.S. Corporation 10-mile radius. To harness foreigners and corporate like you, Ted Cruz, and tell you ineligible, and tell the Tea Party they ineligible to tell constitutional citizens that Lincoln put in the Constitution and declared a war. You can't tell us about Article 2 because Article 2 is non-consented to you. The Bill of Rights, the 1 through 15th Amendment, is protected by platinum and gold. The Union made sure of that. There was a lot of blood spills, so as much as you want to degrade blacks, the real blood spilled in this country was so you, Ted Cruz, and the Tea Party would be just dung contractors because you can't get over non-consent jurisdiction. The whole jurisdiction of the Constitution was changed to non-consent to abolish slavery. You better watch the movie Lincoln by Steven Spielberg and understand black woman was an integral part in all of this. They lived in Lincoln House. They was the mates to some of the senators. They birthed some of the senators. They ain't call him Lincoln Afrikaners for nothing. He has black womb descendancy as well as Jefferson. Okay? And so you can discount it all you want. But Ted Cruz, you will never be president. The system will be brought down before that happens. This is Mary Omni from the House of King David. Shalom.